Hey, beautiful souls. I am Lona-LC-Currie, your transgender mentor, and I am here for another spectacular Sunday night soul session with my good friend and co-host for this series, Miss Pamela Topjian of Breakthrough Hypnotherapy. Now, tonight we're going to talk about a few different things, but they all combine into one. We're going to talk about being non-binary and gender fluidity, what all of that really means, and maybe what its purpose is here on Earth at this very time in history. After doing a couple shows and another taping of my Walk a Mile in My Shoes podcast today, we talked about the subject and the controversial subject of abortion. And while that has nothing to do with gender fluidity, the reason I bring it up is simply because even in that video, we come to understand that the things that seem to come into our reality in what seems like a rush, seems like a whole lot of something, often has a much deeper and more divine reason than maybe we in our own 3D human brain can understand. So tonight, we're going to take a little bit of the mystery out of gender fluidity, and we're going to talk about our deeper feelings about what maybe all this means and how we can better live together as a human race and maybe stop some of the divide, which we know labels divide. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So glad you're going to be here with us. Hey, if you're on the YouTube channel, thank you, number one. And I ask that if you feel led to please like, even share, and subscribe to our channel as we are trying to grow that platform. But you can also find our podcast on iTunes, on Spotify, and iHeartRadio currently. So thank you, and go take a look at that. Also, we want to hear from you. If you have a show idea, a topic you want to discuss, or you have comments, number one, keep them respectful, but we want to hear from you. We want to do this show to to help humanity come together and be more inclusive and to make it easier to heal through understanding of one another. So be sure to leave us a comment. And if you want to stay anonymous, you can go to the description box and find our website and either reach out to Pamela or myself, and you can remain anonymous. We want to protect you more than we want to exploit you, but we do definitely want to hear from you. So if you all are ready to get into this amazing Sunday night soul session live with me and my good friend Pamela Topjian, well, we are ready, so let's go. And sometimes we hit the wrong button. Hey, Pamela! So glad to see your face.
Yes, thank you. You too. You too.
It's always such a blessing and a peaceful moment to have come together and have a connection with you, especially after hard living weeks. You just have a peaceful energy about you, Pam. That's a
Thank
gift.
you.
That's a
Thank you.
gift. So tell us about you and what your thoughts have been about some of the stuff we talked about today in our conversation that we wanted to discuss tonight. I'd like to
Yeah.
hear your opening for the show, what you think about all this.
Well, a couple things we were talking about was, the whole sort of awakening and what's going on in the world right now. A lot of people are feeling it, some are not, and that's okay. But the whole being more open-minded, and there's a lot more of in social media and out in the world, it seems there's more non-binary, transgender, more people that are questioning or just being more open-minded. And it's really, I think we were talking about it's really doing away with labels of everything, and not just sexuality or gender identity or any of that, just all together. just so we are more at one, more together.
Absolutely. I want to
Yeah.
say hey to a couple of beautiful ladies in the audience
Yeah.
tonight. Miss Tammy P, my sister, love you the most, and Miss Brandy Conklin. Good evening, and thank y'all for being here. It can't ever hurt to have, many different types of people come and be able to watch this broadcast
Right.
because, we're all living in this together, regardless of what side we decide to be on or where we think we stand in
Yeah.
amongst some of these issues. The way to healing is always understanding. And
Yeah.
how do we understand one another if we don't get to know the human side? A lot of these these ladies and a lot of other people have followed me throughout my entire journey on
Hmm.
being out in front, out loud in the community,
Yeah.
from identifying as part of the LGL club, and just being part of a healing community, the recovery and addiction community. That's what my whole platform has always been about, is healing the
Hmm.
deeper root to help you move past that fear of relapse, that label of just abstinence is the only way, and all those modalities. And within that, Pamela, is when I had to visit the things for me as a human being that
Yeah.
I was struggling with the most. And as for people that, some people could not stay, with me throughout this
Hmm.
journey, and others have even grown more in their own healing, not because I had anything to do with it, but because maybe I represented, and most transgender and even non binary human beings do represent, doing that shadow work out
Yeah.
in front of people. And I
Yeah.
can see where
Absolutely.
that could be quite, inspiring in ways that you
Hmm.
see, all of those parts of us are so scary to
Hmm.
visit. I
And
didn't
that's what shadow
visit.
work is about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I didn't visit that part of myself for a very long time. I tried when I was younger, first going through puberty,
Hmm.
got really shamed. I tried again in my early 20s, and that's when I experienced a violent rape. I
Mm.
put it away again and couldn't come back to this until I came into recovery and decided I
Yeah.
gotta fix this once and for all. And so that's the only way that I had the courage myself to visit this. So I hope that this broadcast helps people grow in understanding,
Yeah.
helps people learn to accept their family members, learns to help people learn how to be an ally and how to be an ally in their circles. Because
Right.
you and I talked about it today, and this is very important. I'd love for you to share about this. What we were talking about is, you know, many times it's just as hard for people in certain families with certain mindsets to step out and say, "Hey,
Mm.
look, I'm going to support this person." I think Brandy, okay, Brandy, her children has an uncle who's in the middle of transitioning.
Mm.
So for
Mhm.
Brandy to step through now in her life and say, "I'm going to support this
Right.
human being," that could be just almost as hard as it is sometimes for the person going through it.
Yeah. 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 We were talking today how people, have a hard time with change, and then even having a hard time with um, saying that they have a different opinion now, or that they have grown and come to some realizations, and just being able to say, now I understand things a little differently, or a little better than maybe I did before, and I've kind of maybe changed my stance or my understanding of it through just growing and evolving and learning as you go through life, and maybe through watching this program, or just seeing others like it, or just what's out there now. People that may have been very um sort of, what is it, like prejudice, or,
Mhm.
I always get stuck on that. It's not prejudice. It's but not understanding and being fearful of change and thinking that it was maybe wrong or a choice to be any part of the LGBTQ community, and now have a better
Yeah.
understanding. And if they had said anything before, then they're afraid to say, oh, kind of, I've changed my mind, or I've grown and I've learned, because they don't want to be called like a liar or contradicting or even a hypocrite or
Hypocrite.
anything like
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
So
people have
it
a
take
hard time with that.
right, and it takes just as much courage, to stand up really
Yeah.
and be an ally. So, I always like to thank, my sisters and brothers through,
Mhm.
allies, my human allies, because just like in any, any minority movement who's
Mhm.
all anyone is ever trying to accomplish is equality and the right to
Right.
be. And we think that that should
Absolutely.
just be without question, that, you're a human being on earth, with a life, with breath, with all, we should
Mhm.
all have the equal right to be. But unfortunately, we know that's not the case. And I think
Right.
that there seems to be always so many big drastic things that have to come along and almost knock us out of that
Yeah.
comfort zone, and to the point where it will even destroy the comfort zone. And
Right.
people sometimes look at myself and say, well, you're a trans person, so surely you don't have any, surely you accept all and you don't have any issues like that. And that's just not true. I'm finding myself always to be a person who's in constant growth as well.
Yeah.
And it's
I think
only
as long as
been,
we're alive, we are, really.
we should be. We
Yeah,
should
we
be.
should
Yeah,
be.
we should be for sure.
Yeah.
And so I think that, that's what the non-binary movement has been so
Mhm.
interesting to me, because I get to experience what it's also like to be in the world right now, because I'm also 47 years old. I'm used to checking the boxes too,
Right. Right.
male, female, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. What are you? Let's check the boxes.
Right. Other.
Right. And it's only been through, between my recovery process,
Mhm.
my transitioning process, and my own inner healing and
Yeah.
discovering who I am past my traumas, past the labels,
Mhm.
who I truly am as a divine expression of our creator, is to be to the point where I'm like, how do I now not check a box? And
Yeah.
who am I without the boxes? And I think the
Mhm.
the gender fluid, non-binary community and population right now is really driving this point home to us.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's a beautiful thing.
It
At the same
is.
time, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
Not afraid to say it's hard.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. I mean, we said this last time we talked about just, just amazing people are almost, more highly evolved, or something, because, the non-binary and gender fluid people are really out there, not challenging, but I think last week I was saying they are inviting us to look at
Mm-hmm.
things differently. And it's not, um, one thing that I want to say is, you know, um, people are going to say, say you have somebody, okay, you identified as a lesbian before your
Mm-hmm.
transition,
Yep.
and there are people that are going to say, if it's not a choice, then how can it change? But the understanding is, rather than criticizing and pointing fingers, that it's through growth, it's through evolution of yourself and your inner self, to where you come to realizations. And maybe, myself, I'm in my 50s, and so in my teens, there are words that I didn't even know. And so, had I questioned my gender or my sexuality. And then at this point in my life, I'd come to realize that maybe it's not what I had, the box I always checked. Maybe it's something different. It would be more through learning about what all is out there, you know.
Yeah.
So I think, and what, where you fit. And it's almost, it's almost, we always end up talking about religion and we don't always want to, but it's almost like religion, to where, you know how you feel and what feels right and true to you in your heart and in your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look for, where does that fit? What kind of, um, what kind of religion or belief system fits within what I feel inside. So
Right.
you might
Right.
be, you might be identifying or checking the box of one sort of religion, and then it's not because you changed your mind. It's because you found something that you didn't know of before. And you
Mm-hmm.
learned, well, this fits more with who I feel or what I believe in my heart and soul. And it could be the same way, really, I think, with, gender identity and sexuality. I think it can
Yeah.
be the same, that you grow and evolve and you learn about more things within the
Yeah.
community, and you realize, it's realizations and growth
Well, and also I think that it has also a lot to do with what you said, is trying to find a place to fit.
that
One of
fits,
the
right.
one of our five basic human needs is a need for community,
Right.
and a need for connection. And
Yeah.
so, so for, and I always describe it like this, I've always been, I've always known that my gender and every body just didn't match.
Right, right.
And so, but growing through that in the day that I was young was not an option. We didn't have people out that were transitioning, and if they were, they
Yeah.
weren't talking about it. So
Right,
I didn't know that word.
right.
But as I got older, I was 19 years old. I knew that as far as attraction went, I was
Mhm.
attracted to other females, and there
Mhm.
was a name for that, and
Right.
that was a little more visible. But this is a
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful introduction to how different sexuality and gender are.
Mhm.
And because, sexuality again becomes who you're attracted to.
Right.
And right now, through all that, through all of the work that our lesbian, gay, I mean bisexual, transgendered community, all that has been gone through and endured, the suffering that has been
Mhm.
endured by that community of people.
Yeah.
When we look at Stonewall uprising, we
Mhm.
have to look at where a minority of people said, we've had enough of
Right.
being beaten and,
Yeah.
and thrown in jail and have our whole lives ruined. And we're talking about in the 70s. We're talking
Mhm.
about up until, the early to mid 70s, where it was no longer a crime, a real crime to be comfortable in your skin,
Mhm.
and that you were less likely to be committed to a mental institution and
Mhm.
have to go through things like electric shock therapy
Yeah.
and go through things like lobotomies, and
Mhm.
to have the DSM consider homosexuality to be a mental
Right.
disorder. And so those people have made the way for people like myself and so many
Yeah.
others to be more free, to be who
Mhm.
we are. Now, it hasn't completely done away with the stigma or the
No.
shame, but it has done away with the witch hunts,
Right.
and it has given more people time to
Mhm.
to to be a part of this and see this and get used to
Right.
this. When we talk about choices, I often ask people that still consider this to be a choice to really logically think about that statement, and
Right.
then do research. Do
Mhm.
research on what the consequences were for being, you know,
Yeah.
lesbian, gay, or homosexual, transgendered, any kind of, look at what the consequences were and ask yourself, if it were truly a choice, why would
Right.
anybody in their right mind
Yeah.
choose to do that? And then think about how important it
Yeah.
must be in one's soul to feel completely
Mhm.
comfortable in their skin that they would say, I either be me or I die. There's
Right.
no middle ground here to do this.
Yeah.
And so I love what you talk about evolving and growing through that. And I have had the amazing opportunity to experience so many different facets of external
Mhm.
gratification in my life, or that pursuit of happiness
Mm.
through external measures. Meaning, I've been a heavy, overweight person. I've been a thin person. I have been, you know, a lesbian. I've been in active addiction and recovery. I've now experienced both genders on the
Mhm.
spectrum. And I believe that every bit of that's been a blessing because it just helps me understand people
For
and
everybody.
everybody in all actuality. And so
Yeah.
many are people are just fascinating. All people are fascinating,
Mhm.
especially people that do live outside the boxes and aren't
Yeah.
afraid to live outside those boxes. I have intense and immense respect for
Yeah.
the non-binary community because
Yeah.
they insist on being themselves. And they're
Right.
not asking us questions, and they're not asking us to understand because it's not
Right.
required. What they're asking us to do is be respectful.
Right. Which is so basic. It's just the
Absolutely.
very lowest basic common denominator is, just be respectful. People that hate and cause issues are going out of their way to be hateful, to be trolls on the internet or to cause trouble, violence and hate crimes. They're going out of their way to do these things. And if they just cannot even, if they can't be respectful, just then at least don't be committing crimes,
Right.
or,
Right.
making things worse. It's just the very
Yeah.
basic of human nature, the very basic of human compassion, kindness, you know.
Absolutely. And, thank you, Brandy, for, your beautiful comment for loving people
Yeah,
for who they are and not what they are. And that people do
absolutely.
need to stop judging. We can talk. I think, when we talk about breaking down judging and what that means in the human psyche, it's a superiority. It means that if I'm judging you for something, that for that moment, I get to feel superior.
Mm,
And the majority, I feel, of the people that spend most of their life judging are the people that are unwilling to look at their own places that
right.
they're not comfortable with. And so
Yeah.
they stay deflecting outward.
Right. Because where is that coming from? A place of needing to feel superior than another.
Yeah,
Where is that coming from? If
right.
you can't feel equal to others, then you're feeling somewhere that you need to, show your peacock feathers, that
Absolutely.
you're bigger and better and prettier and whatever it is,
Yes, and so for when we feel the need to judge, which we all as humans do, at times we can find ourselves in there, and in that moment, we can do what we call the work. That's
Hmm.
what we call the work, the shadow work, is in the
Right.
moments that you find yourself in that place of judgment. That's the moment that you can flip it around and begin to ask the question, okay, in this moment,
Right.
why, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling the need to to have a
Right.
superior, sense about myself than this other person. It,
Yeah.
it,
Where
it
is this
comes
coming
down to
from?
that. Right.
Mhm.
And that's always an invitation to look within and
Mhm.
begin to work on your own happiness. That's what all of this is truly for. I
Yeah.
believe that there's nothing that's happening here, even if we went biblical,
Mhm.
it even says there that nothing happens on earth that is not first basically ordained or known about.
Mhm.
And it boggles my mind sometimes how we can have so much belief and yet not see
Yeah.
how, that all of this is for the betterment of humanity. We've evolved so many times. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not naked running around building fires, out of
Right.
stones anymore.
Living in caves. Yeah.
Imagine, absolutely. Imagine how different and difficult it was for those people to then evolve into being fully dressed
Right.
and using different methods and language and means to
Mhm.
survive. This is life. Like this
Right.
is life and evolution. And those that are so fearful of change and hold
Mhm.
on so desperately to the way things were, in my opinion, are
Yeah.
the ones that have the most fear within. The
Yeah.
fear that says, I don't know what something after this looks like. So I'm
Right.
going to hold on to what's natural to me, what
What's
I think I
known.
know,
Yeah.
what's
Mhm.
known exactly.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who I heard who quoted this, but they said that fear of the unknown is actually not the fear of the unknown. It's fear of what you think is on
Mm.
the other side of the unknown. It's
Mm.
fear of what you think is known. And I
Mhm.
really broke that down and thought about, and I thought that's true. I'm not
Mm.
necessarily fear of the unknown. I'm afraid of more of what I think it's going to be like or what I think
Yeah.
the
It's almost
result's
an
going to be.
anxiety thing of like
Right.
what's on that other side of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if we were to flip it and get excited
Right.
about how much it's going to free human beings, not just
Yeah.
some, but all.
Right.
If you're a woman on earth today, you got to get excited about this because as
Yeah.
we move away from labeling and stigmatizing the boxes and deciding who you are according to the boxes that you check, and we open up and get to know who you are, your
Mhm.
strengths, your struggles, the beauty, and we begin to share the the power, share, this world meld together in
Mhm.
appreciation for one another. What a beautiful place to live is
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What's the fear? I said this tonight in our other podcast. What
Mhm.
are men so afraid of? By allowing women to be all that they were created to be on
Yeah.
earth. And it's not all men. Let me preface that. It's not all
Right,
men.
right.
But unfortunately, a lot of the men that have the most control
Right.
over our country, our laws, and all of that right
Mhm.
now are afraid
Yeah.
of what that feminine equality, that feminine counterbalance is going
Right.
to create. It's going to create new, and new
Mhm.
is scary.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I just, man, I just love this show for the conversations that we have.
Yes,
I
yes.
really do. They go everywhere. But,
Yeah.
you had asked me a question that really set me up for an amazing journey into my own work and into my own
Good, good.
soul when you asked me last week if I felt like I, at this point, was leaning more towards a non-binary feeling about my life. And
Mhm.
I answered it quickly by saying yes, and then I answered it even deeper on my own throughout,
Yeah.
continuing to meditate on that and watching my life.
It's not
And
the
it's
kind of thing
true.
you could answer quickly and just have
It's
a
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really a black and white. Like, none of
Right.
these issues are black and white. They're very
Right.
personal, which makes them so beautiful.
Right. Right.
Um,
Makes you think.
and it
Yeah.
does, and we shouldn't be afraid of that. Like,
Right.
recovery community, like, let's not be afraid to really think about things that make us uncomfortable, that may cause us to stretch our comfort zone a bit,
Hmm.
because we need that. We deserve
Yeah.
that. Our
Yeah.
life is so much bigger than the box. But as I thought about that and went through so many experiences this week and just over these last, say, year in oh, good, Brandy asked a great question. We're actually going to answer that too. Brandy
Ah,
says, what is
awesome.
binary? Awesome.
Okay.
um but as I went through that, as I started this transition again, an external action to create a balance, an internal balance, an internal, melding together. um I really thought that, that was going to be it. That's the I'm transitioning from born female
Hmm.
to match my male internal. Now, we did preface last week that I was born intersexed, and we are going to do an entire show on the subject of be children that are born
Yeah.
intersexed, what
Okay.
that means, what it looks like, and we're just
Mhm.
doing, I'm still in the midst of doing a lot of research to be able to bring you the most, relevant and truthful
Okay.
information. So y'all, stay tuned for that. It's going to be coming up in the next few weeks. So for I thought once again that if I could check the box
Yeah.
of the gender that I felt in my soul, which again, from what I'd learned, where it was only two boxes,
Hmm.
that would create the happiness I was missing.
Yeah.
That's part of the
Because
big
it's who you
mistake.
felt. Yeah.
Right. Right. And as I started transitioning, and my friend Martin John asked me about, you know, building an identity on being
Yeah.
a trans man, that too began to change within me because I started
Hmm.
realizing and learning I'm more than my labels, I'm more than
Right.
my gender. Even though
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, I'm more than my gender, I'm more than my labels. I'm more than all this stuff. So, what does that mean, and how do I find that? And the
Yeah.
deeper I've gone into that study within, I find myself not so ready to run down the surgical aisle
Yeah.
on a lot of aspects of the transition. Like we talked about today, I'm so much happier to look at myself in the mirror now. Like,
Hmm.
I feel so much more at peace with who I see looking back at me.
That's so great. Yeah.
It does. It feels really good. It
Hmm.
feels really good to not avoid your own reflection.
Yeah.
But I also realize, because there's a lot of pressure that comes from that other trans world too, that,
Hmm.
people want you to check the box. They
They
want to
do.
understand.
Right.
And there was so much pressure that says, when are you going to change your name? What about,
Yeah. What
this
these
is
are
your
all the things
dead
you have to
name.
do now that
This,
you have checked
yeah,
that box. Yeah.
this is the checklist.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm like, but I thought that I was moving away from the checklist, not into
Yes.
even more complicated checklists.
Right. Right.
And as I begin to check off those boxes, I started realizing I'm about to jump into that trap again of looking
Hmm.
for an external box to create internal happiness.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. So I kept
Good.
my
Yeah.
name.
Hmm.
I use my initials at times, but for the
Hmm.
most part, I've decided to keep my first name.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of things on me that I'm deciding to keep me, and I'm
Yeah.
growing truly in love with the the gumbo that is
Yeah.
me. All the different parts that make me me, because
Yay.
what is the point of me denying myself to make it easier for other
Other
people
Right. Right.
to understand something that they likely, unless they're like brandy and it touches your life, a lot of times things have to
Hmm.
touch our lives. People
Right.
don't really care. And if
Right.
they do have an opinion, a lot of times it's bad. So, Brandy, I want to answer your question, and I'm
Yeah.
going to actually read it. I've got the definition here, and we're
Oh,
going to talk
nice.
about that. Um, let's see. Let's see. Relating to, using, or
So
expressed in the
she
system. Okay, so this is it. That's binary. So we're going to. I looked up the wrong one.
so she
Okay,
was asking what binary was, and
what
we were talking
binary is.
non-binary. So
Right.
one and then the other. Yeah.
Right.
So go.
So basically, it is. Let me get the. I'm just going to look up non-binary because it is not. It's not doing it where I can make it a
Mm,
system of gender classification in which all people are categorized as being either male or female.
yeah.
So that's basically binary is the system that categorizes us as being male or female.
And
It's like
bi
when
is two. So think of it
right.
that way. It's like there's only two.
There's only two. And so
Hmm.
when people classify as non binary, they're saying that I don't really identify as all
Right.
male or all female. Basically, I'm just me. Like I'm in the middle and I'm
And
me. And
and it's
even
fluid.
though, yes, and even though we call it non binary, you see what we're doing. We're still
Hmm.
having to label it. But I
Hmm.
think with the non-binary community, we're moving closer to
Yeah.
moving
An
away from the
understanding.
labels.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When we think about categorizing human beings from the moment that they start breathing air. And a lot of times before, because parents
Right.
name children before they
Hmm.
ever come out and do all things. But let's, for the sake of it being, as soon as they breathe air, before we even know who they are, we start naming off things. We have to, this is their name, this is their gender, this is the
Hmm.
day, time they were born. This is, and we as parents begin to now have a dream for this
Right.
child. Whatever, whatever box we've checked for them. Oh, if it's a girl,
Yeah.
she's going to love pink and she's going to do only these certain things and
Hmm.
only those. And if it's a boy, he must be this way and he must be that way.
Right. And the mom or the dad are thinking already, I'm going to teach them this thing or I'm going to
Yes.
teach them that thing. I can't wait to show them this part
Yes.
of being male or female or whatever it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Categorized specifically
Yes.
upon that gender. And then what happens if exactly. Brandy says boys can wear pink.
Of course.
Exactly. And what
Yes.
happens when that that moment happens where say
Yeah.
your little boy finds himself liking the color pink. All of a sudden, we are more apt to now either praise him, not say anything, or shame him for liking
Right.
a color. Like we're talking about a color and how
Right.
much meaning we give things like that. And I think about how many for myself and so many others. Not you don't I don't even think you have to be a part of the alphabet mafia. Just think of a tomboyish girl,
Hmm.
how much, she goes through, how much she feels, shame from someone in
Right.
her family, that, that looking down upon, that you shouldn't be this way. You're
Right.
not supposed to do this.
Well,
Why?
I can remember not in my own family, but extended family. It was just kind of a funny thing that they said a lot when they had young girls. It was kind of a funny thing that they said that you're not going to get any dates if you keep doing that. No man's going to want you. It was kind of, they'd all laugh, and, but that is put in there at an early age that you need to act and look a certain way if you want men to be attracted to you, which obviously this is what we're saying is what you want,
Right.
the adults are saying. So it's
Right.
really, it goes way back, and it was just kind of a, kind of a joke, kind of a funny thing. And,
Yeah.
and people, the whole family would laugh at it. Ha ha ha, this 3-year-old isn't going to get any dates when she's older if she keeps, sitting a certain way or something
Right.
crazy. And but that sticks in there, those
Yep.
things in the background. And then when they're older, and then the family thinks, well, we didn't push any gender on them. We let them play with whatever they wanted to play with or wear whatever they wanted. Yeah, but these words, these things, you don't even realize,
Right.
that were said in the background of their life, since a very young age. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I think that, there's a time and a place, for everything. And as we move through generations, in certain generations, and I think that a lot of times that those generations don't realize how much they evolved from the generation
Yeah.
before. You have the
Right.
the grandparents, and then the parents evolve and
Yeah.
grow past, and then the same thing happens
Yeah.
throughout that generation.
Yeah.
And they still want to hold it back. I mean, I think that now where we are with this gender fluidity, with the
Mhm.
non-binary, and more people saying, hey, I'm not my gender, like, that's not the all of who I am.
Right.
I think that now we're coming upon this new gifted way of raising our children, for
Mhm.
us to be more interested in
Yeah.
who they are. I
Yeah.
see, Brandy, I
It's
do have
getting
my
better.
children as male and female, but I always, yeah, and you have no choice at this point, Brandy. Like, at this
Mhm.
point, we don't really have a choice much but to, pick those boxes. But
Right.
just by being open to their expression of who
Mhm.
they are, that
As they
is,
grow. Mhm.
as they grow, that's a beautiful thing, because many parents, in the past, just have not been like that. It was
Right.
it was more, these children are an extension of me. So if you're
Right.
gay, what are people going to say about me?
Yeah.
And a lot of times they would just shun that person of the family because
Yeah.
of what the neighbors, or unfortunately what the church would say. That's
Mhm.
our biggest, you know,
Yeah.
many times that's our biggest opposition, is what will the church say?
Right.
And I see that a lot of churches now as well are beginning to have a more open interpretation, because
Mhm.
I think when you're connected in that way, if you're spiritually connected in that way, you can see what's happening in the earth. It's not just
Yeah.
this small town we live in, or this
Right.
state we live in. It's
The
it's
internet has helped.
overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
so too. I
Yeah.
believe so too.
If nothing else, at least awareness, or the
Yes.
opportunity. You're making a choice. If you don't know about things, you're making a choice to stay in that unknown, because you can look up anything. But you
Yeah.
do have to be aware of what is opinion compared to what is fact, or what
Right.
is, who is if there's an agenda, where it's coming
Yep.
from, who is putting out that
Yeah.
information. So that is a little harder for sure, especially
Sure.
depending on the generation. But
Mhm.
talking about generations too, my mother is 80 and she's starting to lose some of her memory, and it's just sometimes she, we have this family member that is married to it's a woman married to a woman, so I guess she's lesbian. But at one point, my mother said, well, I don't agree with that, but I hope they're happy. And at another time, she said, because she's losing her memory, she says different things. So I never know which is what she really felt
Right.
and what she's kind of putting out there or if she's also growing and evolving.
Right.
But,
Right.
at another time, she said something different. So, but she does it with other things too, not just about this family member. So, I kind of think that, you know, not to sound horrible, but as the generations die off, you know,
Yeah, it's
like,
it's true.
things will be more open. And also, a lot of people do think, well, once my, uh, yeah, I was going to say something, I'm not going to. But once, but people do think, once my parents pass away or my
Mhm.
grandparents pass away. Like I remember one of my sisters said a long time ago as a teen, well, I can't, she had no trouble dating a black man, but she wasn't going to because grandma would be so upset.
Got
But
yeah.
if grandma wasn't around, then it would be
Right,
fine because she knew that our
right,
parents would be okay with it, but not the
right.
grandparents. So, kind of that kind of a thing where I think that once the generations that just sounds so terrible, I'm sorry. But I
No,
do
it
think that
it's true.
I'm
It's
just
true.
being
It's true.
but I do think that like there are a lot of people in my generation, my generation I think is sort of, a little bit a lot of my generation is still very judgmental, but a lot of us are, like me, more open and learning,
Yeah,
and happy to do so. And then the generation below us, it's going to be like nothing. Like my
right.
daughter said that somebody said about, there was a family gathering. I wasn't there because it was a different state. And then we have this lesbian family member, and somebody said to my daughter, said, "Oh, did you know? Just so you know, so and so, has a girlfriend." It's just kind of like an older person said, "Just so you
Yeah,
know, like
yeah.
don't be surprised." And my daughter was like, "Who cares? Whatever."
Right,
Didn't think it was a
right.
thing at all. And so, I think that that's going to happen down the road.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
you
yeah.
talk about evolution is not, people think of evolution as, well, we don't have a tail anymore and whatever,
Right.
but or as much body hair as we used to.
Right.
But it's not just, and you were talking about learning to build houses and put clothes on for warmth and stuff. Um, and how to do things with our mind and learning
Yeah.
and growing that way. That's evolution as well, but it's not what's really taught in schools as much
Right,
as just, we don't have a
right.
tail and whatever. So
Absolutely.
as people continue to evolve, understanding things, and that's what awakening is really, is just evolving of the spirit, right?
Yes.
So I think it is getting better, and it's
I do
just
too.
going to be down the as these generations are
Yeah. I mean,
go.
I really, really do too. I really, really, really do too. And it's always the youth that teaches us more.
Yes.
The youth always wake us up to
Mhm.
to be more g- understanding and
Yeah.
open, and there are things that don't bother them at all. And we
Right.
can always we tend to just kind of the youth, they don't know anything, but that's not true.
Right.
They they live more from their hearts than
Right.
we do at our age because we've been jaded and we have
Right.
responsibilities and we have to get this done and that done and
Yeah.
and who has time for spiritual things and meditation and
Right.
all of those things.
Right.
You know, the kids and we can all think back to how we lived through emotion. Many of the things as we
Mhm.
lived through emotions, we followed our hearts, we followed
Mhm.
our dreams, or we chased our passions, or we
Right.
made decisions, not to. And I
Mhm.
think the youth always has a lot to teach us. And
Yes.
what has been so important to to so many of us, and like you said, in these older generations, that resistance to change and growth keeps people. I will probably say something now that may be a bit controversial, but how much more controversial can you be, right? Who cares? At this point, I think that a lot of this, this addiction epidemic comes from so many people drowning out the
Yes.
pain of missed dreams, of
Mhm.
living up to the standards and what parents or society has deemed what they should do, or try to
Right.
stay in their place, or
Right.
you know all of that. When an individual, when an internal soul wants to be
Mhm.
who it is, you know in this vehicle that we are in, when it that
Yeah.
wants to happen, it will continuously press on
Right.
us to grow and expand. And every time it presses and we pull it back in,
Mhm.
you know it's painful.
Right.
And so we get to the point where we cannot hide it, or just throw it off, or deny that it's there, or do anything. So a lot of times we reach out, and we use to make it less, to
Right.
forget about it for a while, because when something wants to be heard, I mean, we all know this if you have children, when a child wants to be heard, and that's most of what's happening in us, is our inner child wants to
Yes.
be heard, and it will continuously knock on you
Mhm.
until you open up, unless you drown it out.
Yeah.
And it's like we always say in the recovery process, your problems, your emotions, your trauma, it didn't go anywhere while you were escaping it. It was
Right.
doing push ups, getting
Right.
reinforcement. It was waiting to come back. So that
Yes.
moment you sober up, it runs over you like a train. Where we always want to try to block that, by just pushing it off. I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to think about
Mhm.
that trigger. I'm going to do something else. Abstinence, abstinence, abstinence. And
Yeah.
eventually it doesn't work. We find ourselves back in relapse,
Mhm.
versus looking at the trigger and
Mhm.
saying, hey, you know, what am I missing here? What do you have to tell me? You
Yeah.
know, why does this keep coming up? Why
Right.
does this come up now, surrounding by this?
Yeah.
What are you telling me, Elsie? Like
Mhm.
what little Elsie do you have to tell me? What is it that we
Yeah.
need to look at?
What
And
needs validating within me?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
so, I hope that past binary and non-binary and lesbian, gay and trans, there's a bigger and deeper message and meaning to all of this, which is, let us stop judging those that have found their way to hear who they are and to live that out. And
Yeah.
let's look in the mirror of our own soul, and find
Mhm.
out what we're stifling out. You know,
Yeah.
where are
Yeah.
we needing to live?
When you're looking at judging somebody else and you realize that that's what you're doing, that's when you know you need to really turn it inside. Then look in the
Absolutely.
mirror, just figuratively, meditation or journaling, or, just why, where is this coming from? What is within me? It doesn't have to do with that other person. But,
Nothing.
remember I had mentioned that when I was a kid, there was somebody in my neighborhood. There was a woman that was, that looked, dressed and acted more like a man, and it was just so confusing to me. And I was a kid and I didn't know, I didn't think that she was lesbian. I don't know if I knew the name. I didn't think,
Right.
it was almost like, little girls that were like tomboys. It was like, okay, I understood that, but then here's this grown woman that had this like wallet and chain, and didn't have a purse like all the women I knew, and had this little short haircut and whatever else. And this is, got to be like the 70s, and it was just so confusing to me. And I can remember that because it just confused me so much, and I didn't have a label, and I guess I was looking for a label, or I was trying to
Right.
understand, and it wasn't somebody that I knew well enough that I could ask anything, and I don't know if I would have
Right.
anyway. But I can remember just that confusion, because our minds want to, and
Yes.
that's part of the judgment, is your mind
Yeah.
wants to put this, check this box or that box, and your mind wants to put it somewhere where it's known and understood.
Yes. I think you might have just summed up that bigger more underlined, thing that's trying to be accomplished right here. What
Mhm.
if this is the divine's way of
Yeah.
helping us all expand our
Right.
minds past that only
Right.
one way to understand? What if that happens to be
That's
the
our
bigger
evolution.
meaning?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
There's
that's it.
where the evolution is going. Yeah.
Absolutely, because that's ultimately what evolution means, is the opening and the expanding of the mind.
Mhm.
If we know now that we only use 10% of
Mhm.
our brain's capacity, imagine and think of how much those labels and boxes how are keep all of that so organized that we're
Yeah.
not able to go outside or above that. What if this is the moment and the time that really changes this whole next five
Yeah.
generations, this next 1,000 years, where
Mhm.
in 20 years people are able to now start to think with 20% of their brain? And
And can you
imagine the power we have.
Yeah, and
Ah,
can you imagine them saying, "Do you know that back in, the, you know, the early,
20.
1900s and 2000s, they were still thought everybody had to be male or female, and they thought, there was a
Yes.
lot of hate crimes against people that weren't, and how crazy that will seem, just like some of the stuff now. I mean, think of like we were talking about people wearing clothes now, and living in
Yeah,
houses that might even be thousands of years from now, it might even be like that. It's
right,
it's an
right.
amazing time we're in, actually.
It
So,
is. It is as confusing and as anxious as it, really can make us all. And I don't think that no one should be ashamed of being anxious in this time, and no
right,
one should give themselves a hard time for experiencing bouts of depression and
right.
confusion and
It's a growth,
anxiousness.
yeah.
That's exactly right. When we think
Mhm.
about the germination process of a seed
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
what it must go through,
Yeah.
underneath the ground, alone, isolated, we
In that
forget
hard
because
shell in the dark,
right,
yeah.
and busting that open, and
Right.
it's a violent act. It's like
Yeah.
we also talk about the butterfly and the caterpillar, it's a
Mhm.
violent process,
Yes.
but the end result is always so amazing and
Mhm.
beneficial. And there's always going to be fear and questioning within the process.
Yes.
I one of the greatest things that I've actually learned throughout this last year, and you've been a huge part of that too, because it always helps to have someone remind you that, that it's okay to grow through this process. Like
It's
it's all
okay.
right to feel you're not doing
Yeah.
anything wrong, or you're not growing,
Mhm.
if you acknowledge that you are feeling depressed, or that you're
Yeah.
feeling a bit hopeless, or that you're
Mhm.
to a point that you're just so confused, because that always is that breakdown before that breakthrough. And these
Mhm.
amazing breakthroughs come through in the smallest of times, what seems like the most insignificant, moment, is that
Mhm.
very moment where you really truly break through to that next level of who you
Yeah.
are. And you'll go through it again, and you'll go through it again. And with everything that's happened in my life, from all of the external, even a lot of the internal things, the foundations, all the labels that I found comfort and security in,
Mhm.
being torn down, fell apart, ripped away, you know, gosh, how much all of that has taught me.
Yeah.
How much I can say, man, I didn't even know who I was, or that I had the
Right.
strength to go
Right.
through this, you
It's so
know?
empowering once you get on the other side of it.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So wherever you are tonight in your growth and your evolution journey, and your circumstances, whatever you're going through at the moment, maybe stop in the middle of the judgment. not, and judgment doesn't have to, it's not just detrimental when it's judging others, but when it's judging your circumstance, when it's
Mhm.
judging your place in the world or your lesson that you're growing through, the judgment is what causes the suffering. So maybe for just one moment, you can open yourself up, become more of a vessel to receive the lesson that's being, worked through you, and just know that it is always for your highest and best
Mhm.
good. If you are moving in that direction and that is your intention, your focused intent is to really discover who you are and to be the best human you can possibly be, not the perfect human, but the best that's possible at any time for you, then drop the judgment and allow yourself to just move with the
Mm.
current of this current life. Because the more we resist, the more it persists. And if that inner you is trying to get a point across to you, it will absolutely continue until it gets so loud that you listen. So try listening now. And thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of this conversation. Brandy, I want to thank you so much
Yeah.
for being so active tonight in this episode. It's just really, really made this episode even more fun, just knowing that, that you're there and really interacting with us. We invite all of you to interact with us, whether you see this now, tomorrow, or 10 years from now, you know, interact, don't be afraid to grow with life, because look back through history. It's going to change with or without
Yeah.
you. It's
Right.
going to grow and change, evolve with or without you. So how do you want to go through it?
Mhm.
Being angry, trying to hang on to what was? There's no point, Learn, open, grow. Don't be afraid of these things. These things are necessary. They're necessary for the what's bigger than us, not just for
Yeah.
us. Think
Right.
about what's bigger than us and what's happening.
Right. It's
You
not
know,
about us.
it's not. It's really not. It's really not. We're vessels. We are vessels
Mhm.
all here with a purpose. And Brandy, I think one of your beautiful purposes is to be a supportive ally for, this human being in your reality, to help your children understand how to love the human, the person, not just the vessel that
Yeah.
they're carrying in. And what a beautiful lesson that is for generations to come. Imagine when people are walking around on earth having human connections, learning to love the human, learning to see who this person is versus
Right.
just deciding from that outside shell, eh, that's too much for me, or that doesn't fall in what I think is right or
Right.
good. Imagine human connection in this next
Well,
generation.
you know what name namaste means, right? The Buddhist greeting namaste is I recognize the light in me recognizes the light in you. And it
I
has
love it.
nothing to do with what's on the outside.
It certainly doesn't. It certainly doesn't. So I am so grateful, Pam, that
I
you did this
know.
with me
Thank
and
you.
everything went off, and I just love doing this, and I'm really looking forward to all that we're going to
So
continue to
honored.
do.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm working more on some stuff. So, Recovery Soul Food, just for a small update, Recovery
Mm.
Soul Food is going to kick back off in the first weekend in January. And we've got some
Okay.
amazing guests, and Pamela's going to, of course, be she's going to be a lot in that series as well, as we're really, really, really going to dive deeper into a lot more of the awakening process, the healing process, the inner work process. Got a lot of things planned, some really amazing guests planned. So if you're ready
So
to
excited.
expand, evolve, and connect, then be on the lookout for the Recovery Soul Food podcast coming back the first weekend in January. And I also want to tell you And a part of, we got a new co-host back there. I hear him. A part of all of this that we talk about is inner work, inner healing. And I just want to let you know that hypnotherapy is an amazing, amazing healing modality to add to whatever you already do to work through on your healing, regardless of what you're going through or what you're recovering from, recovering to. Hypnotherapy is an amazing asset to any therapeutic plan. And so, Pamela has offered such an amazing, amazing gift to the transgender mentor, recovery soul food communities of a free full session. So, how can it hurt to be able to try something to really know if it's for you, if it works for you, than to get with Pamela at www.hypnobreakthrough.com. Also, you can follow her on Instagram, Facebook, that's in the description. But get with Pam. Tell her Transgender Mentor, tell her LC sent you, Recovery Soul Food, and give it a try. Give it a try. I know that I wouldn't be where I am or even who I am right now without the benefit of hypnotherapy. And Pamela's one of the best in the business. I
Mm.
guarantee you. So
Thank you.
get with Pamela and let her tell you everything that, she has to offer, and just, you owe it to yourself. Try everything for your healing so that you can find what works. There's no one size fits all. There's no one fix it that fixes all either. You're worth it. You're amazing, and you deserve to experience the best you can possibly be. That's what I know is to be true. So, Pamela, is there anything else you want to say? Anything that I left out?
I just want to say to join our transgender mentor private Facebook group. You do not have to be part of the LGBTQ community to join. It's a private, safe space to ask anything, to learn. It's you can find it. You can you can contact me or go to the Transgender Mentor Facebook page, which is not private, and the group is listed there. So go there.
Absolutely.
And if you have
Absolutely.
any questions or any topics you want to know about, learn more. Brandy was asking some awesome questions. If there's
Yes.
any other questions, reach out to one of us, or it can be asked in that group. So, yeah, just
Absolutely.
reach out.
Absolutely. That's right. We heal through understanding. We
Yeah.
connect through the human in us connecting with the human in others. So I'm so grateful to be a part of this. I am truly a blessed individual. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks for all that will watch this on the replay. Thank you, Brandy, for being such an amazing presence here tonight and just helping us make this show even better than I thought it could be. I thank you, thank you, thank you. Pamela, I can't wait to do this
Mm,
again. Have an amazing week. We'll see
you
y'all later.
too.
Remember, like, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. You can't go wrong when you hit those buttons. Thank you for your support, and we love you. See y'all later.